He came to Thailand looking for stillness. What he found was a woman, a dream, and a piece of land that seemed to whisper something sacred. Together they built something meant to last. But the jungle doesn't always give back what it takes, and not every silence means peace. If stories like this speak to you, don't forget to subscribe. That's how you make sure you won't miss what comes next. It started with a bracelet, a simple thread, woven in green and gold, handed to me by a girl with sun-browned skin and quiet eyes. I was walking the shore of a sleepy northern Thai village, half lost, half healed already. The Mekong was still, the sky pale and open. I hadn't planned to stop, but I did. She said her name was Molly. Not in the flirty, practiced way bar girls say their names. This was different. She didn't push, didn't try to sell me anything else, just smiled and said, "You have a peaceful face." Maybe it was the jet lag, maybe the river. But I smiled back. We met again the next morning. She was barefoot, sitting on a low wooden stool outside the same stall. We talked about the heat, about foreigners, about why I came to Thailand. I told her I was tired. She just nodded, as if she'd heard that 1,000 times. But she didn't look bored. She looked like she understood. She had a soft way of speaking. Measured, unhurried. She told me she believed in energy, the kind that flows through people, through trees, through water. You can feel it if you sit still long enough, she said. I didn't argue. I just listened. By the end of the week, I had stopped checking my phone. The outside world faded, like a radio station just out of range. Mornings began with her smile. Evenings ended with our talks under the lanterns. I brought her fruit from the market. She tied charms on my wrist for protection. One night, as we sat by the river, our arms touched, just lightly. Neither of us moved. She said, "You feel familiar." I didn't know what to say, so I just watched the moon ripple on the water. It happened on a Tuesday. The air was thick with jasmine and smoke from someone's evening fire. We were walking back from the market, bags light, steps slow. She laughed at something I said. I don't even remember what, but she looked at me then. Really looked. Not shy, not bold, just open. I reached to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, and when I did, she leaned in, just slightly. Her lips brushed mine, barely. Then she stepped back. Neither of us said a word. But something had changed. After that night, we didn't talk about the kiss. We didn't need to. She started waiting for me in the mornings, a second cup already on the table. I brought her whatever I found on the way. Grilled bananas, a carved wooden bead, once just a flower I picked near the footpath. Some days we barely spoke, just sat side by side, hands working, eyes meeting now and then. When it rained, we stayed under the awning, knees almost touching. Once during a long silence, she reached for my hand and didn't let go. It was late. The village had gone quiet, only the cicadas still singing, and the soft clink of glass wind chimes above her door. She lit a single candle. The shadows danced across the bamboo walls. I didn't ask to stay. I didn't need to. She took my hand, led me inside. Her touch was unhurried, her breath warm against my skin. She undressed like someone folding away a story. No rush, no show. Just bare truth offered freely. We moved slowly, like we were afraid to break the moment. And when it was over, she rested her head on my chest, fingers drawing quiet circles. Outside, the wind shifted, and I swear the whole jungle exhaled with us. Morning came quiet. No roosters, no motorbikes, just the hush of leaves brushing against the bamboo walls. I woke with her curled into me, one leg draped over mine, her hair scattered across my chest. The scent of her skin still lingered, faintly sweet, faintly wild. She opened her eyes slowly, like someone waking in a place they weren't sure they belonged. But when she saw me, she smiled. Not wide, not playful, just real. We didn't speak for a while. Her fingers idly traced the lines of my hand, as if committing them to memory. Then she said, "You sleep like someone who's not running anymore." I wanted to say something clever, but all I could do was nod, because she was right. Later that day, we walked by the river. The sun was higher than usual when we left. Her hand slipped into mine like it belonged there. Everything felt louder, the birds, the breeze, even the way the water moved. She stopped to pick a leaf from a low branch, held it up to the light. "Do you believe places can heal people?" she asked. I shrugged. "I think people can heal each other." She smiled, tucked the leaf behind her ear. "My family has land far from here, in the hills. It's quiet there, special." She didn't look at me when she said it, just kept walking. But something in her tone stayed with me. That night we lay on a woven mat outside her house. The stars above us were sharp and clear, like the sky had peeled itself open just for us. She rested her head on my chest, listening to my heartbeat. "I used to go there as a girl," she said. "The land. It's near the Laos border. My grandfather said it had spirit, that people came just to sit under the trees and feel better." I ran my fingers through her hair. "What would you do with a place like that?" I asked. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, maybe something to help people, a center, a space for healing. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't know, just a dream." But I didn't think it was just anything. Not anymore. I didn't plan to stay. But somewhere between her laughter and the quiet moments under the stars, my plans began to bend. I canceled a meeting in Melbourne, a consulting offer I'd been circling for months, told myself it could wait. Back home I called my broker, started liquidating some small holdings, nothing major, just enough to feel light. I wasn't running out of money, not even close, but I wanted space, freedom. And something inside me whispered, build, not escape. She never asked me to do any of it. In fact, she seemed almost surprised when I told her I was thinking of staying longer. But she didn't argue. She just placed her hand on mine and said, "You look happier here." We didn't have a big wedding. No guests, no gold necklaces, no monks chanting in a temple. Just 2 signatures at a government office, a couple of awkward photos taken by the clerk, and a quiet meal afterward at a roadside restaurant. She wore a white cotton dress and a jasmine flower in her hair. I wore the only clean shirt I had. When it was done, she reached across the table, took my hand and whispered, "Now you're really not allowed to leave." She was half joking, but part of me knew I never wanted to. That night we walked back to our rented room hand in hand, the sky soft with stars, the road still warm beneath our feet. No music, no toasts, just the silence of something real beginning. A week after we signed the papers, she said, "Let's go somewhere." We packed light, a change of clothes, bottled water, mosquito coils, and a blanket. She didn't say where we were going, just smiled. We rode out before sunrise, her arms wrapped around me on the bike, the road still wet from the night rain. The air smelled of soil and something sweet, wildflowers maybe, or just the morning itself. 2 hours later we turned off onto a narrow dirt track. The trees grew thicker, the sounds of the world faded. When we stopped, she climbed off, barefoot, and walked ahead without a word. "This is it," she finally said. A clearing surrounded by tall trees, a slow stream curling through one side. No buildings, no fences, just sky and green and silence. She turned to me. "My family's land. I used to come here when I needed to feel quiet inside." I looked around, and I understood. That night we built a small fire beside the stream. She boiled tea in a battered tin pot, the kind she used since childhood. We sat on a flat rock wrapped in a blanket, the jungle around us alive with soft night sounds. The stars overhead were endless. She looked up at them for a while, then turned to me. "I always felt," she said slowly, "that something could be created here." Her voice was low, almost unsure. "Not just a house, something that helps, a space people come to when they're lost." She stirred her tea, not meeting my eyes. "My grandfather said this land has good spirit, strong roots." I believed him. Then she looked at me, finally. "But I don't know how to do something like that. I only feel it." I took her hand and squeezed it. "Maybe you don't need to know. Maybe we figure it out together." We stayed 3 nights on the land. No electricity, no walls, just a tarp stretched between trees, a hammock and firelight. During the day, We walked the edges of the clearing. She showed me where the sun rose, where the soil was softest, where the mango tree still bloomed out of season. One afternoon, as we sat with our backs against a rock, I said it without thinking. "What if we built here?" She turned to me. "Built what?" "Not just a house, a space for healing." "You said you didn't know how to begin. Maybe I do." She watched me, uncertain. "I've seen structures like this before," I said. "Domes, made from earth. They breathe. They last. They cost little." Her eyes lit up, like I'd just unlocked something she'd been afraid to hope for. "But we'd need help," she said. "Then let's find the right people," I smiled. "Together." Back in Chiang Rai, everything felt louder, faster, thinner. I couldn't sleep the first night. The fan in our rented apartment buzzed like a warning. So I sat at the kitchen table, a half-empty mug of tea cooling beside me, and started sketching. Circles, arches, notes about airflow, clay, bamboo, insulation. I hadn't drawn like that in years. By morning, 10 pages were spread across the table. I called a few old colleagues from my sustainability days, left voicemails, sent emails. Then I messaged Mark. Old friend, builder, Australian. We hadn't spoken in almost a year, but I knew he'd understand. "Found something," I typed. "Not just land, a life. Come see." I attached a photo of Molly by the stream, barefoot, smiling like she knew secrets the world had forgotten. That night, I stared at the blueprint sketches and felt it, not hope. Conviction, Mark replied the next morning. His message was short, like always. "Looks wild, I'm in, tell me what to pack." 2 weeks later, he stepped off the bus in Chiang Rai, wearing the same dusty boots I remembered from a decade ago. We hugged like brothers, and I saw that familiar gleam in his eye, the one he got when something big was about to begin. We drove straight out to the land. Molly had cleared a space under the trees for a second hammock. Mark walked the perimeter slowly, boots sinking into soft earth, fingers brushing bark and leaves. He stood in the clearing, hands on hips, and said, "Well, mate, if you're crazy enough to try this, I'm crazy enough to help you do it." Molly smiled, and for the first time the land felt populated, like it was waking up. The first days were chaos. We had no real tools, no real plan, just sketches, instinct, and a stubborn kind of joy. Mark started shaping the first foundation line with a stick and a piece of string. Molly hauled buckets of clay barefoot, humming to herself under the sun. I mixed soil and sand with my hands, knees deep in mud, sweat pouring down my spine. We worked until our bodies ached, then sat by the stream, feet in the water, laughing like kids. In the evenings, we cooked over open flame, rice, eggs, a bit of fish. Mark told old stories. Molly leaned against me, eyes half closed, smiling. We weren't just building walls. We were building us, and for a while it felt like nothing could touch us here. Not the past, not the world, not even doubt. It started small, a shift I couldn't name. Molly stopped singing while she worked. She began waking before me, sitting alone by the stream, staring at nothing. When I asked what was on her mind, she'd smile and say, "Just thinking." But the smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. One evening, I showed her a sketch, plans for a new dome, a meditation space by the east trees. She nodded but didn't lean in like she used to. Didn't ask about airflow, about angles. She just said, "Up to you." Mark noticed it too. "She all right?" he asked once, quiet over the fire. I shrugged, probably tired. But deep down, something in me knew. This wasn't tired. This was distance. We hired workers from the nearby village. 5 men, 2 women, strong, fast, quiet. They laughed when they saw our first dome. Said it looked like a turtle, but they helped anyway. With them, everything moved faster. Foundations grew. Mud bricks dried in rows under the sun. Bamboo frames rose like skeletons of something ancient. Mark thrived in the noise, the motion, the rhythm of building. I tried to, but Molly stayed distant. She stopped coming to the site some days, said she had errands, said her aunt was sick, said nothing at all. At night, she lay next to me, but not with me. When I turned to hold her, her body stayed still. Once I showed her the plan for the communal bathhouse, natural stones, heated by the sun. She glanced at it and said, "Why so big?" I looked at her. You wanted a place people could come to heal. She looked away. I didn't mean this many people. The site was alive. Walls rose, domes hardened. We carved window frames, shaped earth into beauty. Visitors from nearby villages began to stop by, curious, smiling, offering fruit or hands. Molly had days when she lit the whole place up. She'd dance barefoot between the domes, paint murals on the clay, laugh with the workers like they were family. She talked about herbs, about ceremony, about sacred space. Then, without warning, she'd vanish. Stay in her hammock all day, curtain pulled, no sound, or snap at Mark over nothing. Refused to eat, refused to speak. I tried to ask. Tired, she'd say. Leave me. One night, after dinner, she stared at the fire for an hour, then whispered, "Maybe this place isn't clean anymore. Too many hands, too much noise." I didn't know how to answer, so I kissed her forehead and told her we were building something good. But part of me wasn't sure she believed it anymore. The morning started bright. The new dome was nearly done. Mark joked about building a sauna next. The workers laughed, and someone brought sticky rice and grilled chicken wrapped in banana leaves. Molly arrived late. Barefoot, hair wet, eyes too wide. She didn't greet anyone, just stood at the edge of the clearing, staring at the structure. Then suddenly, No, this isn't right." She marched toward the wall, slapped her palm against the clay. "This isn't what I wanted. You ruined it." Everyone froze. Mark looked at me uncertain. The workers exchanged glances. She turned to me, breathing hard. "You said it would be ours. Now it's just yours, and his, and theirs." She pointed at the men, at Mark, at the trees. I stepped forward slowly. "Molly, we talked about this. You said—" "I didn't say this," she shouted. Then suddenly quiet. "I want everyone gone." She turned and walked into the trees. Didn't come back that night. By morning, she still hadn't returned. Mark said nothing, just handed me a bottle of water and a look I couldn't read. I followed the narrow path through the trees, the one that curved past the stream, up toward the rocks where she sometimes sat alone. I found her there, knees pulled to her chest, hair tangled, staring at the sky like it had betrayed her. "Molly," I said gently, "can we talk?" She didn't move. I sat beside her, careful not to get too close. "I'm not angry," I said. "I just want to understand." Still nothing. "Tell me what's wrong, please. I thought we were building this together." Her voice came out hoarse. "You don't see it, do you?" "See what?" She turned to me slowly. You came in with your sketches and smiles and turned everything into a project. Even me." My breath caught. "That's not fair." "No," she said flatly. "It's not." She stood up and walked away. And this time, I didn't follow. The project was no longer a dream. 4 domes stood finished. One for meditation, one for sleeping, one for cooking, and one just for quiet. Pathways were laid, water collected, a compost system installed. People started visiting, curious locals, foreigners who heard whispers. They called it beautiful, peaceful, and I should have been proud. But I wasn't sleeping. Molly barely spoke to me. Some days she disappeared completely, only to return wild-eyed, euphoric, telling me the trees had warned her not to trust me. Other days she'd collapse into tears without reason. I asked Mark one night, quietly by the fire, "Do you think something's wrong?" He hesitated. Then a village woman, old and weathered, approached as if she'd been listening. "She's been like this since she was young," she said softly. "Too much sun some days, too much shadow the next." She looked at me with pity. "You should be careful. Love doesn't fix everything." I waited until one of her good days. She was humming again, braiding flowers into a thin rope, her fingers calm for once. We sat beneath the canopy near the meditation dome. "Molly," I began carefully, "can I ask you something?" She looked up, smile faint. I hesitated, then said it. "I think maybe you should talk to someone, a doctor, just to help understand the shifts, the feelings." The smile vanished. Her hands went still. "You think I'm crazy?" "No," I said quickly. "I think you're hurting, and I don't know how to help, but someone might." She stood, the flowers falling from her lap. "Is this what you do?" Her voice was shaking now. When things don't fit your plan, you call them broken? I reached for her hand. She pulled away. I trusted you, she whispered. I let you in. And now you want to fix me like I'm your next project. She turned and walked off. That night she didn't come home. Again. She didn't come home for 2 nights. I sent messages, walked through the village, asked the workers. No one had seen her, or if they had, they weren't saying. I lay awake under the dome roof, staring at the curves we'd shaped with our own hands. And for the first time I was scared. Not angry, not lost. Scared. Because I didn't know who she was when she disappeared like that. And I didn't know who I was without her. The center was nearly complete. The structures stood proud against the jungle. People were asking when we'd open, when the first retreats would start. Mark kept things moving, but I wasn't really there anymore. Not inside. I kept hearing her voice. You turned even me into a project. What if she was right? What if all of this was never ours? Just mine. And what if that meant I'd already lost her? She came back at dawn. Barefoot, clothes soaked from the jungle, eyes glassy like she hadn't slept in days. She stood in the doorway of the sleeping dome, watching me. I sat up slowly. Molly? She smiled. But it wasn't her smile. It was too calm, too far away. Don't worry, she said. I understand now. The land doesn't want any of this. She walked past me into the dome, touched the wall gently like it was a wounded animal. I told them to leave, she whispered. The workers. I said it's over. My chest tightened. You... what? They weren't pure, she added, as if explaining something obvious. They brought noise. I looked at her. This woman I had married, believed in, built a life around. And I saw it, clear as the morning light. She was already gone, and I was the only one still standing in the ruins. That night I found Mark by the fire. He was cleaning tools, his hands caked with dried earth, face tired. He didn't look up when I sat beside him. For a while we just listened to the forest. Then I said, she told the workers to leave. He nodded slowly. I heard. I stared at the flames. I don't know what else to do. Mark set the spade down, finally looked at me. You've done more than most people would. You gave her your heart, your time, your hands. He paused. But if she doesn't want saving, maybe it's not yours to do. I swallowed. I thought love meant staying. Mark shook his head gently. Sometimes love means knowing when to walk away before it kills you too. The fire crackled. I didn't cry. But for the first time I let myself admit, it's over. I didn't tell her I was leaving. There was nothing left to say. I packed what little I had. A few shirts, a notebook full of sketches, and a heart that didn't know how to beat properly anymore. Mark stood by the edge of the clearing, arms crossed, saying nothing. We nodded. That was enough. As I turned to go, I saw her. Molly, standing barefoot in the doorway of the dome we once dreamed inside. She didn't call out, didn't cry, just watched, like she'd already seen this moment in a dream. Her face was unreadable, not angry, not sad, just empty. I held her gaze for a breath, then nodded once. She didn't nod back. I walked down the path, past the mango tree, the stream, the stones I helped lay. I left everything. The domes, the tools, the center, her. I had poured an unthinkable amount of money into that land, into us. But none of it mattered anymore. I couldn't stay in that atmosphere. Not another day. In the end, I had built something I couldn't keep. And walked away with nothing but silence. It's been over 2 years. Sometimes I still dream of the domes, sunlit and warm, before everything cracked. I never went back. I don't know what became of the land, or of her. Part of me doesn't want to. Months later, I filed for divorce through a lawyer in Chiang Rai. I never heard her side. There were no questions, no resistance, just silence. I've told myself that walking away was weakness, that real love endures, but love isn't staying in a place that drains your soul. Love isn't giving until you disappear. She needed something I couldn't give. And maybe deep down, I was only trying to save myself. I lost money. I lost time. But I found a line I didn't know I had. The line where love ends and survival begins. And crossing that line didn't make me a coward. It made me free. If this story hit something in you, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. You're not alone out there, and sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you'll ever do.